Victoria Sterling pressed the lid down slowly, deliberately, her manicured fingers steady as the muffled screams of 6-year-old Lucas faded beneath the wood. She smiled, not a nervous smile, not a guilty smile. The smile of a woman who had done this before and would do it again. The boy clawed at the inside of the box, his tiny fingernails scratching against wood, his voice growing weaker with each passing second. Victoria picked up the shovel. The first pile of dirt hit the box with a hollow thud, then another, and another. She hummed softly to herself, a lullaby she had learned in another country, for another family, for another child who had to disappear. By morning, everyone would blame the maid, and Victoria would inherit everything. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and tell us in the comments which city you are watching from. Your support helps our stories reach hearts around the world. Now let us go back to the beginning to understand how this nightmare started. Grace Mitchell dropped the plate. It shattered against the kitchen floor, pieces scattering in every direction. Her hands were shaking. She did not know why. "Grace, you okay in there?" Carmen the cook appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on her apron. "I am fine." Grace crouched to pick up the broken pieces. "Just clumsy tonight." Carmen walked closer and lowered her voice. "You have been jumpy all day. What is going on?" Grace hesitated. How could she explain the feeling that had been crawling under her skin since this morning, the sense that something was wrong, terribly wrong? "It is nothing," she said. "Just tired." Carmen glanced toward the hallway, making sure no one was listening. "Is it about her?" Grace did not need to ask who Carmen meant. There was only one her in this house that made everyone lower their voices. "I saw her in the garden again today," Carmen whispered. "Digging, by herself, would not let anyone help. What kind of woman digs in the dirt in a $5,000 dress? The kind who is hiding something." The words came out before Grace could stop them. Carmen's eyes went wide. "Grace, be careful. That woman has Robert wrapped around her finger. If she decides she does not like you—" "I know." Grace stood, dumping the broken pieces into the trash. "I know." But knowing and staying silent were two different things, and Grace had been silent for too long. That evening dinner was tense. Grace stood in her usual spot by the kitchen door, invisible as always, watching the family eat. Robert sat at the head of the table, looking exhausted. Victoria sat beside him, radiant in a cream-colored dress, her hand resting possessively on his arm. The children sat across from them. Emma, 9 years old, pushed food around her plate without eating. Lucas, 6, stared at his stepmother with an expression that made Grace's heart ache. Fear. The boy was afraid of Victoria. Grace had seen it for months. The way he flinched when she touched him, the way he went silent when she entered a room, the way his eyes followed her every movement like a rabbit watching a snake. "Lucas, sweetheart," Victoria said, her voice sweet as honey. "You have barely touched your dinner. Are you feeling unwell?" Lucas shook his head quickly. "I am fine." "You look pale." Victoria reached across the table and pressed her hand against his forehead. The boy went rigid. "Perhaps you should go to bed early tonight. Get some rest." "I am not tired." "Nonsense." Victoria smiled at Robert. "Darling, do you not think Lucas looks tired?" Robert glanced at his son. "You do look a little pale, buddy. Maybe Victoria is right." "But Dad—" "No arguments." Robert's voice was gentle but firm. "Early bedtime tonight. Grace, can you take him up?" "Of course, sir." Grace stepped forward, and Lucas practically leaped from his chair to reach her. His small hand grabbed hers and squeezed tight, too tight. As they walked toward the stairs, Grace felt eyes on her back. She did not need to turn around to know who was watching. Victoria, always watching. In Lucas's bedroom, the boy refused to let go of Grace's hand. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Please, just until I fall asleep." "Of course, sweetheart." Grace sat on the edge of his bed. "Is something wrong?" "You can tell me." Lucas's eyes darted toward the door. "She scares me." "Who, Victoria?" He nodded, pulling his blanket up to his chin. "She is different when Dad is not looking. She says things." Grace felt her blood run cold. "What kind of things?" "Mean things about Mom. She said Mom is never coming back because she did not love us enough." Tears welled in the boy's eyes. "That is not true, right? Mom loved us." "She did." Grace gathered him into her arms, holding him tight. "Your mother loved you more than anything in this world. Do not ever let anyone tell you different." "Then why did she leave?" "She did not leave baby. She had an accident. It was not her choice." Lucas pulled back his face, wet with tears. "Victoria said accidents can happen to anyone. She said they happen when people are not careful." He swallowed hard. "Grace, I am scared. I do not want to have an accident." The words hit Grace like a punch to the stomach. "Nothing is going to happen to you," she said firmly. "I promise. I will never let anyone hurt you." Lucas looked at her with desperate eyes. "Promise. I promise." She stayed until he fell asleep, his small hand clutching hers, his mother's old scarf pressed against his cheek. When his breathing finally slowed, she gently extracted her hand and crept toward the door. In the hallway, she nearly collided with Victoria. "Oh," Grace stepped back. "I am sorry, ma'am. I did not see you." Victoria smiled. "How is he?" "Asleep." "Good." Victoria glanced at the closed door. "He has been having trouble sleeping lately. Nightmares. Poor thing." She looked back at Grace, her eyes sharp. "What were you two talking about? I heard voices." "Nothing important. He just wanted a story." "A story?" Victoria's smile did not reach her eyes. "How sweet. You are so good with the children, Grace. So attached to them." "I care about them. I can see that." Victoria stepped closer. "Perhaps a little too much. You know, some people might find it strange, a maid so devoted to children that are not her own. Some might even call it obsessive." Grace felt the threat beneath the words. "I'm just doing my job." "Of course you are." Victoria patted her arm, her touch cold. "We all have our jobs to do. Just remember, Grace, you are the help, nothing more." She turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor like a countdown. Grace stood frozen in the hallway, her heart pounding. Something was going to happen tonight. She could feel it. At 11 p.m., Grace walked past Emma's room and heard crying. She knocked softly. "Emma, are you okay?" No answer, just muffled sobs. Grace opened the door. Emma sat on her bed, knees pulled to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "Sweetheart, what is wrong?" Emma looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "I had a bad dream." Grace sat beside her. "Tell me about it." "I dreamed." Emma's voice broke. "I dreamed Lucas was gone, and nobody could find him, and Victoria was smiling." Grace felt ice spread through her veins. "It was just a dream, honey. Lucas is fine. He is sleeping in his room." It felt so real. Emma grabbed Grace's arm. "Grace, I do not trust her. I know Dad loves her, but something is wrong. I can feel it." "Emma." She talks to someone on the phone late at night, in a different language. I heard her once, and she keeps things in her closet, locked. She has keys she hides from everyone. Grace's mind raced. What kind of things? I do not know. But once I saw her taking pictures of the house, of Dad's office, of everything. Emma's grip tightened. "Grace, what if she is not who she says she is? Listen to me." Grace took the girl's face in her hands. "I need you to be very careful. Do not let Victoria know you suspect anything. Can you do that for me?" Emma nodded. "Good girl. Now try to sleep. I'm going to check on your brother." Grace walked down the hallway to Lucas's room. She opened the door quietly. His bed was empty. Grace's heart stopped. "Lucas." She checked the bathroom. Empty. The closet. Empty. Under the bed. Nothing. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Maybe he went to Robert's room. Maybe he had another nightmare. She rushed to the master bedroom and knocked. Robert answered, groggy and confused. "Grace, what is it? Is Lucas with you?" "What? No. He is in his room." "He is not. His bed is empty." Robert's face went white. He pushed past her. "Victoria, Victoria, wake up." But when he turned back to the bed, Victoria was already sitting up, her expression perfectly composed. "What is happening?" "Lucas is missing." Victoria gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Missing? That is impossible. I checked on him an hour ago." "He is not in his room." "Then we need to search the house." Victoria rose gracefully, reaching for her robe. "He probably just went to the kitchen for water. Children do that." They searched everywhere, every room, every closet, every corner of the mansion. Lucas was gone. Robert was frantic, calling security, calling the police, his hands shaking so badly he could barely hold the phone. Victoria stood beside him, the picture of concerned motherhood, her voice trembling at all the right moments. But Grace watched her. She watched Victoria's eyes, and in those eyes she saw nothing, no real fear, no real worry, just a cold, patient calculation. At 2:47 a.m., Grace sat alone in her small room, unable to sleep. The police had come and gone. They were treating it as a missing child case. Search parties would start at dawn. Robert had collapsed in the living room, sedated by a doctor Victoria had called. Emma was locked in her room, too afraid to come out. And Victoria was somewhere in the house playing her part. Grace stared at the ceiling, her mind spinning. Where could Lucas be? He was 6 years old. He could not have left the property alone. The security gates were locked. The cameras showed nothing. Unless someone inside the house had taken him. Then she heard it. A sound so faint she almost missed it, coming from outside, from the garden. A muffled cry, distant and weak. Grace sat up, her blood running cold. No, it could not be. She rushed to the window and looked out at the rose garden. Victoria's garden. And there, near the white roses, she saw it. Disturbed soil, fresh dirt, a patch that looked different from everything around it. And the sound came again. Clearer now. A child's whimper coming from beneath the ground. Grace did not think. She ran, down the hallway, through the kitchen, out the back door. The night air hit her like a wall of ice. The grass was wet beneath her bare feet. She sprinted across the lawn, her heart threatening to explode. When she reached the disturbed soil, she fell to her knees and pressed her ear to the ground. A thump from below, a small fist hitting wood. Oh, God! Grace clawed at the dirt with her bare hands. Oh, God, oh, God, oh, God! The soil was loose, fresh. Someone had dug here tonight. Someone had buried something. Someone had buried someone. Grace ran to the shed and grabbed a shovel. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped it twice. She ran back to the spot and started digging. The first scoop came out easy. The second, the third. She dug faster, harder, dirt flying everywhere. Her arms screamed in pain. Her back felt like it was tearing apart, but she did not stop. She could not stop. The sound was getting weaker now. The thumping was slowing down. "Hold on!" she screamed at the ground. "I am coming! Just hold on!" Her shovel hit wood. Grace threw the shovel aside and dug with her hands. Her fingernails cracked and bled. The dirt packed under them into the cuts, burning like fire. She did not care. The wooden box emerged from the earth like a coffin rising from a grave. Grace found the edge of the lid and pulled. It was wedged tight. She pulled harder, her muscles screaming. The lid came free with a crack. Inside the box, covered in dirt, his lips blue, his eyes closed, lay Lucas Harrington. He was not moving. "No!" Grace screamed. "No, no, no!" She grabbed him under the arms and lifted him out. His body was limp, cold. His small chest was not moving. "Breathe!" She laid him on the ground and started CPR, pressing on his tiny chest, counting compressions, tilting his head back, breathing into his mouth. "Come on, baby. Come on. Breathe for me." "Nothing. You do not get to die." She pressed harder. "Do you hear me? You do not get to leave." She thought of her own son, her beautiful boy, the way he had slipped away from her in that hospital room, his hand growing cold in hers. She had not been able to save him. She had watched him die, and there was nothing she could do. Not again. Never again. Grace breathed into Lucas's mouth once more. Twice. 3 times. And then he coughed. Dirt sprayed from his lips. His small body convulsed. He gasped. choked, coughed again. His eyes fluttered open, wild and terrified. "Grace." His voice was barely a whisper. "I am here." She pulled him against her chest, sobbing. "I am here, baby. I have got you. You are safe now." Lucas clung to her, his whole body shaking. "The lady," he whispered, "the lady put me in the box." Grace's blood turned to ice. "What lady?" "Victoria." The name came out like a curse. "She gave me medicine that made me sleepy, then she carried me outside. She said I was going to take a long nap." His voice cracked. "She said I would see Mommy soon." Grace held him tighter, rage and horror flooding through her in equal measure. Victoria had done this. Victoria had drugged a child, put him in a box, and buried him alive in the backyard, and she had done it to frame Grace. "We need to get you to the hospital," Grace said. "Can you hold on to me?" Lucas nodded weakly. Grace picked him up, his small arms wrapping around her neck. She started to run, across the garden, across the lawn, through the gate that she had left unlocked, onto the street. 6 blocks to the hospital. The longest 6 blocks of her life. Her lungs burned, her legs ached, her bare feet were bleeding, leaving red footprints on the pavement. But she did not slow down, could not slow down. Lucas's breathing was shallow. His grip was getting weaker. "Stay with me," she gasped. "Talk to me. Tell me about school. Tell me about your friends. Tell me anything." "I am tired, Grace. I know, baby, but you cannot sleep yet. Keep your eyes open for me." "I want my mom." "I know." Tears streamed down Grace's face. "I know you do." The hospital appeared ahead, glowing like a beacon in the darkness. Grace burst through the emergency room doors, her legs finally giving out. She collapsed onto the floor, Lucas still clutched in her arms. "Help!" she screamed. "This child was buried alive. He is dying. Someone help me." Chaos erupted. Doctors appeared from everywhere. Hands reached for Lucas, pulling him from her arms. Voices shouted orders. Machines beeped. Footsteps pounded against tile. A nurse crouched beside Grace. Ma'am, are you hurt?" "What happened?" "She buried him." Grace could barely breathe. "In the garden. She buried him alive. Who did this?" Grace looked up, her eyes burning with fury and grief. "Victoria Sterling, his stepmother. She tried to kill him." The next 2 hours were a blur. Grace sat in the waiting room, wrapped in a thin hospital blanket. Her hands bandaged her feet, treated for cuts. Police officers came and went. They asked questions. She answered. They asked more questions. She answered again. At 5:17 a.m., Robert Harrington arrived. He looked like a dead man walking. His face was gray. His eyes were hollow. He stopped when he saw Grace, and for a moment neither of them spoke. "They told me you found him." His voice was barely audible. "They told me he was buried. In our garden." "Yes, sir." "How?" Robert's voice cracked. "How did you know?" "I heard him. I heard him crying under the ground." Robert stared at her. Then his face crumpled. He pressed his hand over his mouth, trying to hold back a sob. "My son. Someone buried my son alive. In my own backyard. While I was sleeping." "Mr. Harrington, was it Victoria?" The question came out raw and broken. "The police keep asking about her. They keep asking where she was tonight. Tell me it was not her. Please, tell me the woman I love did not try to kill my child." Grace looked at him with steady eyes. "Lucas told me what happened. Victoria gave him medicine. Victoria carried him outside. Victoria put him in the box." Robert's legs buckled. He caught himself on the wall, his whole body shaking. "No, that is not possible. She loves those children. She loves me. Lucas was dying when I pulled him out. He told me everything. He has no reason to lie." "But we were going to get married. We were going to be a family." "Mr. Harrington, I am so sorry. But you need to hear this. Victoria is not who she says she is. I do not know who she really is, but the woman living in your house is a monster." Robert opened his mouth to respond, and then Victoria walked in. She looked perfect as always, dressed in a white cashmere coat, hair immaculate, face arranged in an expression of deep concern. She rushed toward Robert and threw her arms around him. "Darling, I came as soon as I heard. They told me Lucas is alive. Thank God. Thank God." Robert stood stiff in her embrace. He did not hug her back. Victoria pulled away, frowning. "Robert, what is wrong?" Lucas said something. Robert's voice was flat. "About what happened to him tonight." "Of course he did. The poor baby must be so traumatized." "He said you did it." Victoria froze. For one brief second, her mask slipped. Grace saw it, the flash of cold fury in those beautiful eyes, the tightening of her jaw, the calculated adjustment of her expression. Then the mask was back, and Victoria started to cry. "What, Robert, that is insane. Why would I hurt Lucas? I love him like my own son. He said you gave him medicine. He said you carried him outside." "He is confused. He was drugged. Someone drugged him and buried him, and now he is traumatized and confused." Victoria grabbed Robert's hands. "You cannot possibly believe I would do something like this. I love you. I love your children. I would never." "Then explain something to me." Robert's voice hardened. "The police check the security cameras. They show you leaving the house at midnight, alone, walking toward the garden with a shovel." Victoria's tears stopped. Her face went blank. "There must be some mistake." "There is no mistake. They have footage, clear footage, of you digging in the rose garden at midnight tonight, the same spot where my son was buried." Victoria was silent for a long moment. Grace watched her, watched the wheels turning behind those empty eyes. Then Victoria laughed. It was a soft laugh, almost gentle, the kind of laugh you might hear at a garden party. But underneath it was something else, something dark and cold. "You think you know what you saw." Victoria's voice changed. The sweetness was gone. In its place was something hard, bitter, real. "You think those cameras tell the whole story." "Victoria, my name is not Victoria." The words hung in the air like poison. Robert stepped back. "What?" "Victoria Sterling died 3 years ago, in a car accident, in Mexico City. I took her identity, her credit cards, her social security number, everything." Grace felt the floor tilt beneath her. "Who are you?" Robert whispered. Victoria smiled, that cold, empty smile that Grace had always feared. "My name is Elena Vasquez, and your wife did not die in an accident. I killed her, just like I was going to kill your son, just like I will kill anyone who stands between me and what I want." Robert lunged at her, but Victoria was faster. She pulled a small pistol from her coat pocket and pointed it at his chest. "Do not move." Robert froze. Grace froze. The entire waiting room seemed to freeze. "Here is what is going to happen," Victoria said calmly. "I am going to walk out of this hospital. I am going to disappear. And if anyone tries to follow me, I will kill every person in this room." She glanced at Grace. "Starting with the maid who ruined everything." She backed toward the door, the gun steady in her hand. "Victoria, please." Robert's voice was desperate. "Elena, whatever your name is, you do not have to do this." "Actually, I do. You see, Robert, this is what I do. I find rich, lonely men. I make them love me, and then I take everything they have." She smiled. "Your wife understood, in the end, when she realized what I was, right before her car went off that cliff." Robert made a sound like a wounded animal. Victoria reached the door. "Goodbye, Robert. It was almost fun." She turned to run, and Emma stepped out of the shadows behind her. The 9-year-old held a fire extinguisher in both hands, raised above her head. Before Victoria could react, Emma swung with all her strength. The metal canister connected with Victoria's skull with a sickening crack. Victoria crumpled to the floor. The gun skittered across the tile. Emma stood over her, trembling, tears streaming down her face. "That was for my mother," she said, "and for my brother, and for Grace." Security guards rushed forward. Police officers appeared. Victoria was handcuffed and dragged away, blood streaming from her head, her eyes rolling back. Robert ran to Emma and swept her into his arms, sobbing. Grace sat in her chair, watching it all unfold, her heart still pounding. It was over. But even as she thought it, she knew she was wrong, because as they dragged Victoria past her, the woman turned her head. Her eyes locked onto Grace, and she mouthed 3 words, "Not over yet." 2 hours later, the sun rose over Los Angeles. Grace sat beside Lucas's hospital bed, holding his small hand. He was sleeping peacefully now, his color returning, his breathing steady. The doctor said he would make a full recovery. Robert stood by the window, staring out at the city. He had aged 10 years in one night. His shoulders were slumped. His eyes were dead. "I loved her," he said quietly. "I really loved her." Grace did not respond. "She killed Catherine, my wife, the mother of my children." His voice broke. "And I was going to marry her. You did not know. I should have seen it. Emma saw it. Lucas saw it. Even you saw it." He turned to face her. "You tried to warn me, months ago. You said something was wrong with her. I told you to mind your own business." "Mr. Harrington." "Robert, please. After everything you have done, call me Robert." Grace nodded slowly. "Robert, you loved her. Love blinds us. That is not a crime. What she did, that was the crime. You are a victim here, just like your children." Robert walked to Lucas's bedside. He looked down at his son, his face twisted with guilt. "I almost lost him, because I was too stupid to see what was right in front of me. But you did not lose him. He is here. He is alive. That is what matters." Robert reached down and brushed the hair from Lucas's forehead. The boy stirred but did not wake. "Grace, I do not know how to thank you. You saved my son. You saved my family. I was just doing what anyone would do." "No." Robert shook his head. "No, that is not true. Anyone else would have called for help. Anyone else would have waited. You ran into the dark and dug my son out of the ground with your bare hands." He looked at her with tears in his eyes. "You are not just anyone. You are a hero." Grace felt her own eyes fill with tears. "I am no hero. I am just a maid." "You are family." Robert's voice was firm. "From this moment on, you are family. Whatever you need, whatever you want, it is yours." Grace looked at Lucas sleeping peacefully. She thought of her own son buried in a cemetery 3,000 miles away. She had not been able to save him, but she had saved this boy. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was her second chance. "Just let me stay," she said softly. "Let me take care of them. That is all I want." Robert nodded. "For as long as you want. This is your home now." Grace squeezed Lucas's hand. Outside, the sun climbed higher. But deep in the Los Angeles County Jail, Victoria Sterling sat in a holding cell smiling to herself. Because she had a secret that no one knew yet. She was not working alone, and her partner was still out there waiting for the perfect moment to finish what they had started. 3 days after Victoria's arrest, Grace woke to the sound of her phone ringing. She grabbed it from the nightstand. The clock read 6:15 a.m. Unknown number. "Hello? Is this Grace Mitchell?" A man's voice. Deep, professional. "Yes. Who is this?" "Detective Marcus Cole, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. I need you to come to the station, immediately." Grace sat up, her heart already racing. "What happened? Is it about Victoria?" "Just come to the station, Ms. Mitchell. There are things you need to see." The line went dead. Grace dressed quickly, her hands trembling as she buttoned her blouse. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her bones, the same instinct that had woken her the night Lucas was buried. She found Robert in the kitchen, dark circles under his eyes, a cold cup of coffee in front of him. He had not slept properly since that night. None of them had. "The police called," Grace said. "They want me at the station." Robert looked up. "Did they say why?" "No, just that it was urgent." "I will come with you." "You should stay with the children. Emma has been having nightmares. Lucas barely speaks." Robert rubbed his face with both hands. "This nightmare never ends, does it?" "It will end," Grace said firmly. "I promise you, it will end. but as she walked out the door, she wondered if that was a promise she could keep. At the police station, Detective Cole led Grace to a small conference room. The table was covered with photographs, documents, and newspaper clippings. "Sit down, Ms. Mitchell." Grace sat. Her eyes moved across the spread of materials, and her stomach turned cold. "What is all this?" "This is Elena Vasquez." Detective Cole picked up a photograph. A woman who looked almost exactly like Victoria, but younger. Darker hair, different name. Born in Bogota, Colombia, 1979, father unknown, mother died when she was 12. He picked up another photo. This is Maria Santos, married a wealthy businessman in Mexico City. Husband died of a heart attack 6 months after the wedding. She inherited everything. Another photo. This is Isabella Cruz, married a shipping magnate in Barcelona. His 2 children died in a house fire. He killed himself 3 months later. She inherited everything. Another. This is Natalia Fernandez, married a tech entrepreneur in Miami. His son drowned in the family pool. The entrepreneur died in a car accident. She inherited everything. Grace felt sick. They are all the same woman. Yes. Victoria Sterling, Elena Vasquez, Maria Santos, Isabella Cruz, Natalia Fernandez, all the same person. At least 5 identities that we know of. Possibly more. How many people has she killed? Detective Cole looked at her with grim eyes. Confirmed 11. Suspected at least 20. 20 people. Grace pressed her hand over her mouth. 20 people dead. And this woman had been living in the Harrington mansion, sleeping next to Robert, eating dinner with the children. But that is not why I called you here. Detective Cole pulled out a laptop and turned it toward Grace. We found this in her hotel room, a safety deposit box she had rented under yet another name. He pressed play. A video appeared on screen. Victoria sitting in what looked like a hotel room, speaking directly to the camera. If you are watching this, then something went wrong. The maid, probably. She was always watching me. Always suspicious. I should have dealt with her sooner. Grace's blood ran cold. Victoria continued speaking. But do not worry. I have a backup plan. I always have a backup plan. My partner will finish what I started. The Harrington children will die. The maid will be blamed, and the fortune will be ours. She smiled, that cold, empty smile. By the time anyone figures out what really happened, we will be gone, just like always. The video ended. Grace stared at the blank screen, her heart pounding. She has a partner. Yes, and we have no idea who it is. Someone close to the family. That is what we need to find out. Detective Cole leaned forward. Ms. Mitchell, I need you to think very carefully. In the months Victoria lived in that house, did you ever see her with anyone suspicious? Anyone she met secretly? Anyone who seemed out of place? Grace closed her eyes, trying to remember. Victoria had been so careful, so controlled. She never let anyone see behind her mask. But then something flickered in her memory. The gardener, Grace said suddenly. There is a new gardener, Miguel. He started working at the mansion about a month before Victoria arrived. What about him? Victoria hired him personally. She said she needed someone to help with her rose garden. Robert thought it was strange, but she insisted. Detective Cole's eyes sharpened. Where is this gardener now? I do not know. After Victoria was arrested, he stopped coming to work. No one has seen him. The detective grabbed his phone and started dialing. Get me everything on a gardener named Miguel, works at the Harrington estate, and put out an APB. Consider him armed and dangerous. Grace stood up. I need to get back to the house. The children are there. We are sending officers with you. Until we find this partner, you are all in danger. Grace was already running for the door. By the time Grace reached the mansion, 2 police cars were already parked outside. She rushed through the front door. Robert, Emma Lucas. Robert appeared from the living room. What happened? Why are there police everywhere? Victoria has a partner. Someone who is still out there. Someone who is supposed to finish what she started. Robert's face went white. The children. Where are the children? I thought they were with you. Emma went to her room an hour ago. Lucas is in the playroom with... Robert stopped. His expression changed. With Carmen. He is with Carmen. They both ran. The playroom was empty. Carmen lay on the floor unconscious, a gash on her forehead. Lucas was gone. Grace screamed. Robert dropped to his knees beside Carmen, shaking her. "Carmen, Carmen, wake up! Where is Lucas?" Carmen's eyes fluttered open. She was dazed, confused. Someone hit me from behind. I did not see. Where is my son?" "I do not know. I am sorry. I am so sorry." Robert pulled out his phone with shaking hands. "I am calling the police. They are right outside. They can—" "Wait!" Grace grabbed his arm. "Listen." Footsteps, coming from upstairs, slow, deliberate. And then Emma's voice, high and terrified. "Let me go! Please, let me go!" Grace and Robert ran for the stairs. At the top of the staircase stood Miguel, the gardener. He had one arm wrapped around Emma's throat. In his other hand, he held a knife. "Stop right there," he said calmly. "One more step, and I cut her throat." Robert froze. "Please, please do not hurt my daughter." "Where is Lucas?" Grace demanded. "What did you do with him?" Miguel smiled. It was a cold smile, disturbingly similar to Victoria's. "The boy is safe, for now. But he will not stay safe for long unless you do exactly what I say." "What do you want?" "I want what Victoria wanted, what she was promised, the Harrington fortune." Miguel pressed the knife closer to Emma's throat. The girl whimpered. "You are going to sign over everything, Mr. Harrington, the company, the accounts, the properties, everything. I will give you whatever you want. Just let my children go." "That is what I wanted to hear." Miguel jerked his head toward the study. "Your lawyer is already on the way. We are going to do this nice and legal. And once I have what I want, I disappear. The children live. Everyone is happy." "How do I know you will not hurt them anyway?" "You do not." Miguel's smile widened. "But you do not have a choice, do you?" Robert looked at Grace. His eyes were desperate, pleading. Grace's mind raced. The police were outside. If she could get a message to them, if she could distract Miguel long enough. "Can I go to Lucas?" she asked, "just to make sure he's okay. He must be so scared." Miguel studied her for a long moment. "The maid. Victoria told me about you. She said you were the dangerous one, the one who would not stop asking questions." "I'm just worried about the boy." "The boy is in the basement, tied up, crying for his dead mommy." Miguel laughed. "He will be fine, as long as everyone cooperates." Grace felt rage surge through her veins. This man had put his hands on these children, had terrorized them, had threatened to kill them. She was not going to let him walk away. "I want to see him," Grace said, her voice steady. "Let me see Lucas. Then Mr. Harrington will sign whatever you want." Miguel considered this. Then he shrugged. "Fine, but try anything, and I kill the girl." He pushed Emma forward, keeping the knife at her throat, and nodded toward the basement door. "Go, quickly." Grace walked toward the basement, her heart pounding. She passed within inches of Miguel. She could smell his sweat, see the tension in his muscles. He was nervous despite his calm act. He knew the police were outside. He knew this could go wrong at any moment. That was his weakness. Grace descended the basement stairs slowly. Her eyes adjusted to the dim light. And there in the corner, bound to a chair with duct tape over his mouth, sat Lucas. His eyes went wide when he saw her. He tried to speak, but the tape muffled his words. "I am here, baby," Grace whispered. "I am going to get you out of this." She moved toward him, her hands reaching for the tape. And then she heard the crash. Upstairs, glass shattered. Voices shouted. Someone screamed. Grace ripped the tape from Lucas's mouth and started tearing at his bonds. "We need to move. Now!" "Grace, he is going to hurt Emma. The police are here. They will save her. But I need to get you out." She pulled him free and lifted him into her arms. The boy was shaking, tears streaming down his face. "Close your eyes," Grace told him. "Do not open them until I tell you." She ran up the stairs. The scene in the hallway was chaos. 2 police officers wrestled with Miguel on the ground. Robert had Emma in his arms, both of them sobbing. Miguel's knife lay on the floor, covered in blood. "Emma!" Grace shouted. "Is she hurt?" "She is fine!" Robert called back. "The blood is not hers. He cut himself when they tackled him." Grace felt her legs go weak with relief. She set Lucas down and the boy ran to his father. Robert gathered both children in his arms, holding them so tight it looked like he would never let go. "It is over," he whispered. "It is over. You are safe now." But Grace was not so sure. She watched as the officers handcuffed Miguel and dragged him away. His eyes met hers as they passed, and he smiled. "Victoria sends her regards," he said softly. "This is not over. It will never be over." Detective Cole arrived an hour later. He found Grace sitting in the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she had not touched. The house was swarming with police. The children were upstairs with Robert guarded by 3 officers. "Miss Mitchell." Cole sat across from her. "How are you holding up?" "I am fine." "That is not what I asked." Grace looked at him with tired eyes. "What do you want me to say, Detective?" "That woman tried to murder a child. Her partner just held a knife to a little girl's throat. And you are asking how I am holding up? I am asking because I need to know if you are strong enough for what comes next." "What do you mean?" Detective Cole pulled out a file and slid it across the table. "We searched Miguel's apartment, found some interesting things, photographs, documents, evidence of their entire operation." Grace opened the file, her breath caught. Inside were photographs of her, dozens of them. Grace in the kitchen, Grace in the garden, Grace walking the children to school, Grace at the grocery store. Someone had been following her for months. "Victoria was planning to frame you," Cole said. "If her original plan had worked, if Lucas had died and no one had found him in time, you would have been the prime suspect. She had evidence planted, forged documents, witness testimony from Miguel saying he saw you acting strangely." Grace's hands trembled. She thought of everything. Almost everything. She did not count on you hearing that boy crying in the ground. She did not count on you running barefoot to the hospital with him in your arms. Cole paused. She did not count on you being exactly who you are. What happens now? Now we build our case. Victoria is going to prison for the rest of her life. So is Miguel. But there is something else. He pulled out another document. We traced Victoria's bank accounts. She had millions hidden in offshore accounts, all stolen from her previous victims. Under federal law, that money can be claimed by the victims' families. Grace stared at him. "I do not understand." "The Harrington family is entitled to a significant portion of that money, and Robert has already told us that he wants you to receive part of it." "I do not want her money." "He said you would say that." Cole smiled slightly. "He also said to tell you that it is not her money. It is justice, and you have earned it more than anyone." Grace shook her head. "I did not save Lucas for money." "I know. That is exactly why you deserve it." That night, Grace sat in Lucas's room watching him sleep. His face was peaceful now. The terror of the past few days had faded into exhaustion. He looked like a normal 6-year-old boy dreaming of superheroes and birthday parties, but Grace knew the scars were there hidden beneath the surface. Emma appeared in the doorway. She was wearing her pajamas, her hair still damp from her bath. "Can I come in?" "Of course, sweetheart." Emma walked over and sat beside Grace. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "Grace, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Are you going to leave?" Grace turned to look at her. "What? Why would I leave?" "Because Victoria is gone. Because the danger is over. Because you do not have to stay anymore." Grace felt her heart break. This child had lost her mother, had nearly lost her brother, had been held at knife point by a madman, and now she was afraid of losing the one person who had protected her. "Emma, listen to me." Grace took the girl's hands in hers. "I am not going anywhere. Do you hear me? I am staying right here, with you, with Lucas, with your father. This is my home now. You are my family." Tears spilled down Emma's cheeks. "Promise. I promise." Emma threw her arms around Grace's neck and held on tight. Grace held her back, stroking her hair, whispering words of comfort. "I love you, Grace," Emma whispered. Grace closed her eyes, tears streaming down her own face. "I love you too, sweetheart. I love you too." 1 week later, Victoria Sterling was formally indicted on 18 counts of murder, attempted murder fraud, and identity theft. Grace watched the news coverage from the living room of the Harrington mansion. Robert sat beside her, the children between them, all of them together. On screen, Victoria was led into the courthouse in handcuffs. She wore an orange jumpsuit, her hair unwashed, her face bare of makeup. She looked nothing like the polished woman who had once ruled this house, but her eyes were the same, cold, empty, calculating. As the cameras flashed, Victoria turned and looked directly at one of them. She smiled, and then she mouthed 4 words, "I will be back." Robert grabbed the remote and turned off the television. "You do not need to see this." "She cannot hurt us anymore," Emma said, but her voice was uncertain. "She cannot." Robert put his arms around his daughter. "She is going to prison forever, and we are going to move on with our lives." "Can we really do that?" Lucas asked quietly. "After everything?" Grace pulled the boy close. "Yes, we can. It will not be easy. It will take time. But we are going to heal. Together." Robert looked at her with grateful eyes. "I do not know what we would do without you. You will never have to find out." But later that night, after the children were asleep, Grace stood at the window of her room and stared out at the garden. The rose bushes had been torn out. The soil had been replaced. There was no trace of what had happened there. But Grace could still see it, still feel the loose dirt under her fingers, still hear the weak thumping from underground. She knew Victoria's words were just meant to frighten them. She knew the woman was going to prison for life. She knew the danger was truly over. But something still nagged at her, a loose thread that she could not quite grasp. Victoria had mentioned partners, plural. Miguel was one. But what if there were others? What if Victoria's web of lies extended further than anyone knew? Grace's phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. She opened it, and her blood turned to ice. The message contained a single photograph, Grace standing at this very window taken from somewhere in the garden. Below the photo were 3 words. "We are watching." Grace did not sleep that night. She spent hours pacing her room, checking the locks on every door and window, listening for sounds that should not be there. At 4 a.m., she finally made a decision. She called Detective Cole. "What is it, Ms. Mitchell?" "It is 4 in the morning. Someone sent me a photograph of myself, taken from outside the house, tonight." Silence on the line. Then, "I am sending officers now. Do not leave your room." "There is more to this, detective. Victoria said partners, plural. What if Miguel was not the only one? We are looking into it. But right now, my priority is keeping you and that family safe." "That is my priority too." Grace hung up and walked to the children's rooms. She checked on Lucas first, watching his chest rise and fall. Then Emma curled up with her stuffed bear. These children had been through too much. They deserved peace. They deserved safety, and Grace was going to make sure they got it, whatever it took. By dawn, the police had swept the property and found nothing. No intruders, no evidence of anyone being on the grounds. But the photograph was real. Someone had been there. Detective Cole sat with Grace in the kitchen, his face grim. "We are increasing security, around-the-clock surveillance, armed guards at every entrance. That is not enough." "What do you suggest?" Grace looked at him with determined eyes. "I suggest we stop playing defense. Victoria is in custody. She cannot hurt anyone directly, but she still has information, names, locations, the identities of everyone who ever worked for her. You want me to interrogate her? I want you to break her, make her talk, find out who else is out there." Cole leaned back. "She has not said a word since her arrest. Her lawyer has her completely locked down." "Then we need to give her a reason to talk." "What kind of reason?" Grace was silent for a moment. Then she made a decision that would change everything. "Me," she said. "I will go see her, face to face. She hates me more than anyone in the world. If anyone can get her to talk, it is me." Cole stared at her. That is incredibly dangerous. I know. She could try to hurt you, even in prison. Let her try. Cole studied her face for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. I will make the arrangements. But Grace, be careful. That woman is not human. She feels nothing, fears nothing, and she will say anything to get inside your head. Grace stood up. She already got inside my head, the night I pulled her victim out of the ground. Now it is my turn. 2 days later, Grace sat in a cold interrogation room at the county jail. The door opened. 2 guards led Victoria Sterling inside. She looked different now. Older. Harder. The veneer of elegance had crumbled away, leaving something raw and ugly underneath. But when she saw Grace, she smiled. Well, well, Victoria said, settling into her chair. The maid, come to gloat. I came to talk. About what my tragic childhood, my complicated motivations. Victoria laughed. I am not one of those villains who explains everything, Grace. I do not have a sad story. I am just better than everyone else, smarter, stronger, more willing to do what needs to be done. Is that what you told yourself when you buried a 6-year-old boy alive? Victoria's smile flickered, just for a moment. He was in the way. His father would never have signed over his fortune while those children existed. It was nothing personal. Nothing personal. Grace's voice was steady, but inside she was trembling with rage. You drugged a child. You put him in a box. You buried him in the garden and left him to suffocate, and it was nothing personal. Now you understand. Victoria leaned forward. That is what makes me better than you, Grace. I do not let emotions get in the way. I do not let love or guilt or compassion cloud my judgment. I see what needs to be done, and I do it. That does not make you better. It makes you a monster. Monster. Victoria tested the word. I have been called worse, by better people than you. Grace took a deep breath. I did not come here to argue about what you are. I came to ask you a question. Oh, and what is that? Who else is working with you, who sent the photograph to my phone, who is still out there watching the Harrington family? Victoria's eyes glittered. Now why would I tell you that? Because if you do not, I will make sure you spend the rest of your life in solitary confinement. No visitors, no privileges, nothing but 4 walls and your own thoughts until the day you die. Victoria laughed. You do not have that power. The FBI does, and they are very interested in your international activities. 20 murders across 5 countries. That is enough to lock you away forever, unless you cooperate. For the first time, something flickered in Victoria's eyes, uncertainty, fear. What are you offering? Information for information. You tell me who your partners are. In return, I will recommend leniency, better conditions, maybe even the possibility of parole someday. Victoria was silent for a long moment. Grace could see her calculating, weighing her options. Then Victoria smiled again, but this time the smile was different, less certain, more desperate. You want to know who is watching you? Victoria leaned close, her voice dropping to a whisper. Look closer to home, Grace, much closer than you think. What does that mean? It means the person you trust most is the person you should fear most. Grace felt ice spread through her veins. Who? Give me a name. Victoria sat back, her smile returning. That is all you get, for now. Come back when you have something better to offer. The guards appeared. The interview was over. As they led Victoria away, she turned back one last time. Sweet dreams, Grace. And remember, no one is who they seem to be. The door slammed shut. Grace sat alone in the interrogation room, Victoria's words echoing in her mind. The person you trust most. Who did she trust most? Robert Carmen, Detective Cole. Or was Victoria just playing games trying to destroy her from the inside? Grace did not know, but she was going to find out. Grace drove back from the county jail with Victoria's words burning in her mind. The person you trust most is the person you should fear most. It was a game. Victoria loved games. She loved watching people squirm, loved planting seeds of doubt, and watching them grow into paranoia. Grace knew this. She had seen Victoria do it to Robert, to the children, to everyone in that house. But what if this time Victoria was telling the truth? Grace's phone rang. Robert's name flashed on the screen. "Grace, where are you? The kids have been asking for you." "I am on my way back. 20 minutes. Is everything okay?" "You sound strange." Grace hesitated. Should she tell him about Victoria's warning? Should she plant the same seed of doubt in his mind? "Everything is fine," she said. "I will explain when I get home." She hung up and gripped the steering wheel tighter. The person you trust most. Who did she trust, Robert, had been nothing but grateful since the night she saved Lucas. Carmen had worked in the house for 15 years. Detective Cole had been investigating Victoria's crimes with relentless determination. But someone was watching. Someone had sent that photograph. Someone was still out there. Grace pulled into the driveway at 4:47 p.m. The mansion looked the same as always. Grand, imposing, safe. But Grace no longer felt safe here. She had not felt safe since the night she pulled Lucas from that grave. She found Robert in his study, staring at his computer screen with a troubled expression. "What is wrong?" Grace asked. Robert looked up. "Close the door." Grace did. Her heart began to pound. "I received an email today," Robert said quietly, "from an anonymous account, someone claiming to have information about Catherine's death." Grace froze. "What kind of information?" "They said—" Robert's voice cracked. "They said Catherine did not die in an accident. They said she was murdered, and they said they have proof." Victoria admitted that. In the hospital. She said she killed Catherine. "I know. But this email says something different." Robert turned the computer screen toward her. "It says Victoria did not act alone. It says someone helped her. Someone who was in our house the night Catherine died." Grace read the email. Her blood ran cold. The message was short, direct, terrifying. "Your wife's death was planned for months. Victoria Sterling could not have done it alone. Ask yourself who benefited most from Catherine's death. Ask yourself who was there that night. Ask yourself why the brake lines were cut so precisely that only a professional could have done it. The truth is closer than you think." "Who sent this?" Grace asked. "I do not know. The account was created yesterday. No way to trace it. It could be someone trying to manipulate you. Victoria has allies. Miguel was not the only one." "I know." Robert rubbed his face with both hands. "But what if it is true? What if someone in this house helped kill my wife?" Grace thought about Victoria's words again. "The person you trust most." "Robert, I need to tell you something. I went to see Victoria today." His head snapped up. "You what?" "I needed answers. About who sent me that photograph. About who else might be working with her." "And what did she say?" Grace hesitated. "She said I should look closer to home. She said the person I trust most is the person I should fear most." Robert stared at her. "She's playing with you." "Maybe. But someone sent you that email. Someone sent me that photograph. Someone is still out there, Robert. And they know things. Things only someone close to this family would know." Robert stood up abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor. "I am going to find out who did this. I am going to find out who helped kill my wife. And when I do, I am going to destroy them." Grace had never heard such cold fury in his voice. At 6:15 p.m., Detective Cole arrived at the mansion. Grace showed him the anonymous email. His expression grew darker with every word. "This changes things," he said. "If Victoria had help from inside the house, we need to investigate everyone." "Everyone!" Robert's voice was sharp. "My staff has been with me for years. I trust them." "That is exactly what the email is counting on." Cole pulled out his notepad. "I need a list of everyone who was in this house the night your wife died. Staff visitors, anyone." Robert thought for a moment. Grace was here, Carmen. Jose the driver, the night security guard, Thomas. That is it. What about Victoria? She was not living here yet. We had only been dating for a few weeks. But she knew the house. She had been here before, a few times, for dinner. Cole wrote something down. And the brake lines. You said Catherine's car was tampered with. The police ruled it an accident at the time, but after what Victoria confessed, I had my own investigators look into it. They confirmed the brake lines were cut. Professionally. By someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Grace felt something shift in her memory, a conversation she had almost forgotten. "Jose," she said suddenly. Both men turned to look at her. Jose used to be a mechanic. Before he became a driver, he told me once. He said he could take apart an engine blindfolded. Robert's face went pale. "Jose has worked for me for 12 years. I know, but he has the skills, and he was here that night. So was everyone else. But not everyone else knows how to cut brake lines." Cole stood up. "Where is Jose now?" "He went to pick up Emma from her piano lesson. He should be back in—" The front door opened. Jose walked in, Emma beside him. He saw the three of them standing there, saw their expressions, and stopped. "Is something wrong?" Grace watched his face carefully, looking for any sign of guilt, any flicker of recognition. Jose looked confused, concerned, innocent. But Victoria had looked innocent too. "Jose, we need to talk," Robert said. "Emma, go to your room." "But Dad, now Emma." The girl ran upstairs, casting a frightened glance over her shoulder. Jose stepped forward. "Mr. Harrington, what is going on? Where were you the night my wife died?" Jose blinked. "What?" "That was 2 years ago. Answer the question." "I was here, at the house. I drove Mrs. Harrington to her meeting that afternoon and came back. Then I went to my quarters. I did not leave again until the next morning when the police came." "Did you touch her car that night? Did you go near the garage?" Jose's expression shifted from confusion to hurt. "No, I would never—" "Mr. Harrington, you know me. I loved Mrs. Harrington. She was kind to me. She helped me when my mother was sick." "Someone cut her brake lines, Jose. Someone with mechanical skills." The blood drained from Jose's face. "And you think it was me?" "I do not know what to think anymore." Jose took a step back. His eyes were wet. 12 years. I have worked for you for 12 years. I have driven your children to school. I have kept your family safe. And now you accuse me of murder. I am not accusing. I am asking. There is a difference." The room went silent. Grace watched Jose's face. She had known this man for 3 years. He had taught Lucas to ride a bicycle. He had stayed late on countless nights to make sure the children got home safely. But she had also known Victoria. She had also trusted her instincts, and her instincts had failed her before. "Jose," Grace said quietly, "if you did not do this, help us find out who did. Think back to that night. Did you see anything strange? Anyone who should not have been here?" Jose wiped his eyes. "I do not. I was in my room. But—" He stopped. "But what?" "There was something. I did not think it mattered at the time. But that night around midnight I heard a car in the driveway. I looked out my window and saw someone leaving." "Who?" "I could not see clearly. It was dark. But it was a woman. She walked to a car parked down the street and drove away." Grace's heart pounded. "What did she look like?" "Tall, thin. She was wearing a dark coat. That is all I could see." "Could it have been Victoria?" Jose thought for a moment. "Maybe. The height was right, but I cannot be sure." Detective Cole stepped forward. "Why did you not mention this to the police?" "Because I did not think it mattered. Mrs. Harrington's death was ruled an accident. No one asked about visitors. No one asked about anything." "We are asking now." Jose spread his hands. "Then that is all I know. I saw a woman leave. I went back to sleep. The next morning, Mrs. Harrington was dead." At 8:30 p.m., Grace sat with Carmen in the kitchen. The older woman was trembling. She had heard about the interrogation, about the accusations against Jose. "They think one of us did it," Carmen whispered. "After all these years, they think we are murderers." "No one is accusing you, Carmen." "Not yet." Carmen's eyes were red from crying. "But they will. They will dig into all of our pasts. They will find every mistake we ever made, and then they will point fingers." Grace reached across the table and took Carmen's hand. "I will not let that happen. You cannot stop it. Once the suspicion starts, it never ends." Carmen looked at her with desperate eyes. "Grace, I have a secret. Something I never told anyone." Grace felt her stomach tighten. What is it? The night Mrs. Harrington died. I was not in my room. I was in the garden. What? I could not sleep. I went outside to smoke. I know it is a bad habit. I know I should not. But I was stressed that day and I needed... Carmen, why does this matter? Because I saw her. Carmen's voice dropped to a whisper. I saw Victoria that night at the garage. Grace went cold. What time? Around 11, maybe 11:30. She was walking away from the garage toward the side gate. She did not see me. I was behind the rose bushes. Why did you not tell anyone? Because I did not know she was dangerous. She was just Mr. Harrington's new girlfriend. I thought maybe she had come to leave him a present or a note or something romantic. Carmen's hands were shaking. I had no idea she was cutting brake lines. I had no idea she was a murderer. Carmen, you need to tell Detective Cole. No! Carmen grabbed Grace's arm. If I tell him I was outside that night, he will think I was involved. He will think I helped her. You did not help her. It does not matter what I did. It matters what they think I did. Carmen's voice broke. Grace, please. I have grandchildren. I cannot go to prison for something I did not do. Grace stared at her. This woman had been like a mother to her for 3 years. Had cooked meals for the children, had comforted them when they cried, had held this household together through every crisis. And now she was begging Grace to keep her secret. I will not tell him, Grace said finally. But Carmen, if there is anything else you know anything at all, you need to tell me. Now. Carmen hesitated. Her eyes darted toward the door. There is one more thing. What? Victoria was not alone that night. There was someone else with her, by the gate. They were talking, arguing maybe. I could not hear what they said. Grace leaned forward. Who was it? Did you see their face? No, it was too dark, but I could tell it was a man. Tall, strong build. Jose. No, Jose is thin. This man was bigger, more muscular. Grace's mind raced. A man, working with Victoria, someone who was at the house that night. Carmen, think, this is important. Was there anyone else at the house that night? Anyone who should not have been here? Carmen closed her eyes, concentrating. The security guard, Thomas, he was here. Thomas was always here. It was his job. I know, but... Carmen opened her eyes. He quit the next week, right after Mrs. Harrington died. He said he had found another job. Mr. Harrington did not think anything of it. Where is he now? I do not know. I never saw him again. Grace stood up. I need to find Detective Cole. Grace, please. My secret. I will keep your secret, Carmen. But I need to find Thomas. At 9:15 p.m., Grace found Detective Cole in Robert's study. Thomas, she said, the security guard who worked here 2 years ago. He quit right after Catherine died. I need you to find him. Cole looked up sharply. Why? Because Carmen saw Victoria at the garage that night, and Victoria was not alone. She was with a man, a big man. Thomas fits the description. Cole was already reaching for his phone. What else did Carmen see? Grace hesitated. She had promised to keep Carmen's secret. She was outside that night, smoking. She saw Victoria leaving the garage area around 11:30, and she saw a man by the gate talking to Victoria. Why did Carmen not come forward before? She was scared. She did not realize what she had seen until now. Cole dialed a number. This is Detective Cole. I need a full background check on a Thomas. Grace, do you know his last name? No, but Robert's records should have it. Cole nodded into the phone. Thomas, last name unknown, worked security at the Harrington residence approximately 2 years ago. I need his current address, employment history, everything you can find. He hung up. If this Thomas was working with Victoria, he could be the one sending those emails and photographs. He would know the house. He would know the family. He would know everything. Can you find him? If he is still alive, I will find him. At 10:45 p.m., Grace's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She opened it with trembling hands. You are getting closer, but you are looking in the wrong direction. The answer is not outside. It is inside. Check the attic. 3rd box from the left. Grace stared at the message. The attic. She had never been to the attic. No one went there except to store old furniture and forgotten memories. She should tell Cole. She should tell Robert. She should not go alone. But something pulled at her, the same instinct that had woken her the night Lucas was buried. Grace climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. The attic door was at the end of the hallway, half hidden behind an old armoire. She pulled it open. The hinges creaked. Inside, darkness waited. Grace turned on her phone's flashlight and climbed the narrow stairs. The attic was cramped and dusty. Boxes were stacked everywhere, labeled in faded handwriting. Christmas decorations, baby clothes, old photographs. 3rd box from the left. Grace found it. A plain cardboard box, no label, tucked between a broken lamp and a pile of old curtains. She opened it. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, all of Catherine Harrington. But these were not family photos. These were surveillance photos. Catherine at the grocery store. Catherine at Emma's school. Catherine at a coffee shop talking to a man Grace did not recognize. And beneath the photographs was a folder. Grace opened it. Her hands were shaking. Inside was a document, a contract, dated 3 months before Catherine's death. The contract was an agreement between Victoria Sterling and an unnamed partner. It detailed their plan to infiltrate the Harrington family, eliminate Catherine, and eventually eliminate the children. The goal was simple Robert's fortune, but that was not what made Grace's blood freeze. At the bottom of the contract was a signature, a single name, Marcus Cole. Grace dropped the folder. Detective Cole, the man investigating Victoria's crimes, the man she had trusted with everything, the man who had access to all the evidence, all the witnesses, all the information. He was Victoria's partner. He had been playing them all along. Grace heard footsteps on the stairs behind her. She spun around. Detective Cole stood at the top of the attic stairs, his gun drawn. "I was hoping you would not find that," he said quietly. Grace backed away. You were working with her the whole time." "From the beginning." Cole stepped forward. "Victoria and I met in Mexico 10 years ago. She was running her first con. I was a dirty cop looking for a new opportunity. We have been partners ever since. You helped her kill all those people, Catherine, the children in Spain, everyone. I provided logistics, fake documents, cover stories. Victoria did the dirty work." Cole shrugged. "It was a good arrangement, until you ruined everything. The night I found Lucas, you were supposed to be asleep. Victoria had drugged the wine at dinner. Everyone else passed out, but you did not drink." Grace remembered. She never drank wine. It gave her headaches. "If I had not found him, you would have found him in the morning, when it was too late, and all the evidence would have pointed to you." Cole smiled. Victoria's plan was beautiful. The grieving maid obsessed with the children finally snaps and buries the boy alive. Perfect story. Perfect ending. "But I found him alive." "Yes, you did." Cole's smile faded. "And now I have to clean up this mess." He raised the gun. Grace's mind raced. She was trapped. No weapon, no way out. Cole stood between her and the only exit. "Robert knows," she said quickly. "I told him I was coming up here. If you kill me, he will find my body. He will know you did it." "Robert is downstairs with his children watching a movie. By the time he realizes you are missing, I will be long gone." Cole's finger tightened on the trigger. "Goodbye, Grace. You should have stayed in your place." A voice came from behind Cole. "Drop the gun!" Cole spun around. Robert stood at the bottom of the attic stairs holding a shotgun. "I said drop it." Cole hesitated. Then he smiled. "Robert, always the hero. I followed Grace up here. I heard everything." Robert's voice was shaking with rage. "You killed my wife. You helped that monster kill Catherine. She was in the way, just like everyone else. Drop the gun, or I will shoot you where you stand." Cole looked at the shotgun, looked at Robert's eyes, and he must have seen something there because he slowly lowered his weapon. "Kick it toward me," Robert said. Cole kicked the gun across the floor. Grace lunged for it and picked it up, her hands trembling. "Call 911, Robert told her. "Tell them we have Victoria's partner. Tell them Marcus Cole is a murderer." Grace pulled out her phone, and that was when Cole moved. He grabbed a box and hurled it at Robert's face. Robert ducked, and the shotgun went off, blowing a hole in the ceiling. Cole tackled him, and they crashed down the attic stairs together. Grace ran after them. Robert and Cole were fighting on the landing, punching, grappling, struggling for control of the shotgun. Cole was stronger, more experienced. He landed a punch that sent Robert reeling. Cole grabbed the shotgun. "No!" Grace screamed. She raised Cole's pistol and fired. The bullet caught Cole in the shoulder. He staggered back, dropping the shotgun, clutching his arm. Grace fired again. This time she missed. Cole ran, down the hallway, down the stairs, out the front door. Grace chased him, but by the time she reached the driveway, he was gone. Red and blue lights filled the night. Sirens wailed. The police had arrived. At 11:52 p.m., Grace sat in the living room wrapped in a blanket, giving her statement to a federal agent. Robert sat beside her, his face bruised and swollen. Emma and Lucas huddled on the couch, too scared to speak. "Cole is on the run," the agent said. "We have units searching the entire city. We will find him." "What about Victoria?" Grace asked. "Does she know?" "We are transferring her to a federal facility tonight. Maximum security. She will not be able to communicate with anyone." "She already communicated with someone. Someone sent me those texts. Someone led me to the attic." The agent frowned. "You think there is a third person involved?" Grace thought about the anonymous messages. The photograph, the email to Robert. Someone had been feeding them information. Someone who wanted Victoria and Cole exposed. "I do not know," she said. "But someone has been helping us, pointing us in the right direction. Without those messages, I never would have found that contract." "Do you have any idea who it might be?" Grace shook her head. But in the back of her mind, a suspicion was forming. Someone who knew Victoria's secrets. Someone who had access to the evidence. Someone who wanted revenge. At 2:30 a.m., Grace's phone rang. "Unknown number," she answered. "Hello?" A woman's voice. Soft. Unfamiliar. "You found the contract. Good. I was hoping you would." "Who is this?" "Someone who has been waiting a long time for Victoria to pay for what she did." "Are you the one who sent me those messages?" "Yes." "Why? Why help us?" Silence for a moment. Then, "Because Victoria killed my daughter. 5 years ago in Barcelona. My little girl was 7 years old. Victoria poisoned her, made it look like an illness." Grace felt tears sting her eyes. "I am so sorry." "I have been tracking her ever since, following her from country to country, gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment." The woman's voice hardened. "When I saw what she did to Lucas, I knew it was time. I could not let another child die." "How did you know about the contract about Cole?" "I have my sources, people who worked with Victoria and wanted out, people who were willing to talk." The woman paused. "But my work is not finished. Cole is still out there, and as long as he is free, you and those children are in danger. The police are looking for him. The police will not find him. Cole knows how to disappear, but I know where he is going." Grace gripped the phone tighter. "We're in Mexico. He has a safe house there, money hidden, a new identity waiting. Can you give me the address? I can do better than that. I can make sure he never leaves the country." "How? Do you trust me, Grace?" Grace thought about everything this woman had done, the messages, the photographs, the contract. Without her, Victoria would still be free. Cole would still be hiding in plain sight. "Yes," Grace said. "I trust you." "Then let me finish this. For my daughter. For Lucas. For everyone Victoria and Cole have hurt." "What are you going to do?" "What should have been done years ago." The line went dead. At 6:00 a.m., Grace watched the sunrise from the kitchen window. She had not slept. None of them had. The children were finally asleep upstairs, exhausted and traumatized. Robert was in his study making calls, trying to hold the pieces of his shattered life together. Grace's phone buzzed. A news alert. Breaking: former LAPD detective Marcus Cole found dead in Tijuana, Mexico. Authorities say he was shot twice in the chest. No suspects have been identified. Grace stared at the screen. It was over. Cole was dead. Victoria was in federal custody. The nightmare that had haunted this family for 2 years was finally ending. But even as relief washed over her, Grace felt a chill. Someone had killed Cole. Someone who had been watching from the shadows, orchestrating everything. And that someone was still out there. Grace's phone buzzed again. A text from the unknown number. "It is done. Your family is safe. Take care of those children, Grace. They deserve a mother who will fight for them." Grace typed a reply. "Who are you?" The response came immediately. "A ghost, just like you would have been if Victoria had her way." Then nothing. The number was disconnected. Grace set down her phone and looked out the window. The sun was fully up now, golden light spilling across the lawn. She thought about everything she had survived. The night she pulled Lucas from the grave, the confrontation with Miguel, the discovery of Cole's betrayal, the fight in the attic. She had been a maid, invisible, forgettable. Now she was something else. A protector, a fighter, a mother in everything but name. Robert appeared in the doorway. "The children are awake," he said quietly. "They are asking for you." Grace turned to face him. "How are they?" "Scared, confused. But they know it is over. They know they are safe." He paused. "Because of you." Grace shook her head. "We all survived this together." "No." Robert crossed the room and took her hands. "You saved us. Over and over again you saved us. I do not know how to repay that. I do not know if I can ever repay that." "Just let me stay," Grace said simply. "Let me take care of them. That is all the payment I need." Robert squeezed her hands. His eyes were wet. "Stay forever," he said. "Please, this family needs you." Grace smiled. Then she walked upstairs to the children who were waiting for her. 2 weeks after Marcus Cole's death, Victoria Sterling's trial began. Grace sat in the courtroom at 9:00 a.m., her hands folded in her lap, her heart pounding. Robert was beside her, his jaw clenched tight. They had left the children with Carmen, who had become their rock through these terrible weeks. The courtroom was packed. Reporters filled every available seat. Cameras from a dozen news networks lined the back wall. Victoria Sterling's crimes had become an international sensation, and the whole world was watching. When Victoria was let in, Grace felt her stomach turn. The woman looked different now, thinner, paler. Her designer clothes had been replaced by an orange jumpsuit, but her eyes were the same, cold, calculating, defiant. Victoria scanned the courtroom until her gaze landed on Grace. She smiled. That same cold, empty smile that Grace had seen 100 times, the smile of a predator who still believed she would win. Grace did not look away. The judge called the court to order. Victoria Sterling, also known as Elena Vasquez, Maria Santos, Isabella Cruz, and Natalia Fernandez, you are charged with 18 counts of first-degree murder, 4 counts of attempted murder, 12 counts of fraud, and multiple counts of identity theft. "How do you plead?" Victoria's lawyer stood. "Not guilty, Your Honor." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Robert leaned toward Grace. "Not guilty, after everything she confessed. She is playing a game," Grace whispered back. "She always plays games." The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Wells, rose to give her opening statement. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defendant is not just a murderer. She is a monster. For over 15 years, she has traveled from country to country, preying on wealthy families, destroying lives, murdering innocent people, including children, for money." Wells clicked a button, and photographs appeared on the screen. Victims. Faces of the dead. Carlos Mendez, age 47, poisoned. His 2 daughters, Sofia and Isabella, ages 8 and 10. House fire. Manuel Garcia, age 52, car accident. His son Diego, age 12, drowned. Richard Harrington's first wife, Catherine Harrington, brake lines cut, and her son Lucas Harrington, age 6, buried alive in his own backyard. Grace saw Robert flinch at Catherine's name. "The defendant did not act alone," Wells continued. "She had partners, accomplices who helped her plan and execute these horrific crimes. One of those partners, former Detective Marcus Cole, was recently found dead in Mexico. But the defendant was the mastermind, the architect of death, and today she will finally face justice. And Victoria's lawyer stood for his opening statement. "My client is innocent. She is a victim of circumstance framed by the real killer, Marcus Cole. Every piece of evidence against her was planted. Every witness has been manipulated. Victoria Sterling is not a monster. She is a scapegoat." Grace felt rage surge through her veins. A scapegoat. This woman had buried Lucas alive. She had confessed in front of witnesses, and now her lawyer was claiming innocence. The judge called for the first witness. The prosecution calls Grace Mitchell to the stand. Grace stood. Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself to walk forward, to climb into the witness box, to face the woman who had tried to destroy everything she loved. "State your name for the record." "Grace Mitchell." "Ms. Mitchell, can you describe what happened on the night of October 15th? Grace took a deep breath. "I woke up around 2:47 a.m. I heard a sound coming from outside, a muffled cry. I went to investigate and found disturbed soil in the rose garden." "What did you do next?" "I started digging. I found a wooden box buried about 3 feet underground. Inside the box was Lucas Harrington. He was unconscious, barely breathing." "What did you do then?" "I pulled him out and ran to the hospital. It took 6 blocks. I ran barefoot. I did not stop until we reached the emergency room." "And what did Lucas tell you when he woke up?" Victoria's lawyer jumped to his feet. "Objection, hearsay. Your Honor, the victim's statement is admissible under the excited utterance exception." "Overruled. The witness may answer." Grace looked directly at Victoria. "Lucas said, 'The lady put me in the box.' When I asked which lady, he said, 'Victoria.' She gave me medicine that made me sleepy. She said I would see Mommy soon." A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Victoria's expression did not change, but Grace saw something flicker in her eyes. Annoyance, perhaps, or hatred. No further questions. Victoria's lawyer approached the witness stand. "Ms. Mitchell, how long have you worked for the Harrington family?" 3 years. "And in those 3 years, did you ever have any conflicts with my client?" Grace hesitated. "She did not like me." "Why not?" "I do not know. Perhaps because I was close to the children." "Close to the children." The lawyer repeated the words slowly, as if they were significant. "Some might say obsessively close. Is it true that you lost your own son several years ago?" Grace felt the blood drain from her face. "Yes." "And is it true that since joining the Harrington household, you have become unusually attached to Lucas and Emma?" "I care about them. That is not unusual." "But it could be seen as unhealthy, could it not? A grieving mother projecting her loss onto someone else's children?" "Objection." Prosecutor Wells was on her feet. "This is character assassination, not cross-examination." Sustained. "Move on, counselor." The lawyer smiled thinly. "Ms. Mitchell, did you have access to the garden where Lucas was buried?" "Yes, I cleaned the garden regularly." "And did you have access to the sedatives found in Lucas's system?" "No, I never touched any medication." "But you could have. You lived in the house. You knew where everything was kept." "I did not drug that child." "So you say." The lawyer turned to the jury. "But isn't it possible that you, Ms. Mitchell, buried Lucas Harrington and then conveniently discovered him playing the hero to cover your own crime?" Grace's hands were shaking. "That is insane." "Is it? Or is it the truth that no one wants to see?" Objection. Withdrawn. No further questions. Grace stepped down from the witness stand, her heart pounding. Victoria's lawyer had tried to flip the narrative to make Grace the suspect. It was desperate. It was absurd. But as she returned to her seat, she saw some of the jurors looking at her with uncertainty. At 11:30 a.m., the prosecution called its next witness, Emma Harrington. Grace's heart clenched as the 9-year-old walked to the witness stand. Emma looked so small, so fragile, But there was something in her eyes that Grace recognized. Courage. "Emma, can you tell us what you remember about the night your brother disappeared?" Emma spoke clearly, her voice steady. "I woke up because I heard footsteps outside my door. I looked through the crack and saw Victoria carrying Lucas. He was asleep, or I thought he was asleep." "What did Victoria do?" "She carried him downstairs. I followed her. I saw her go out the back door toward the garden." "Did you tell anyone?" Emma's voice wavered for the first time. "No. I was scared. Victoria had told me. She said if I ever told anyone her secrets, something bad would happen to Lucas." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I thought if I was quiet she would leave him alone, but she did not." Grace saw Victoria's mask crack for just a moment. A flash of pure fury crossed her face before she composed herself. "What happened the next morning?" "I woke up and Lucas was gone. Everyone was looking for him. I wanted to tell them what I saw, but I was afraid." Emma looked directly at Victoria. "I am not afraid anymore." The courtroom was silent. Victoria's lawyer declined to cross-examine the child. At 1:15 p.m. during the lunch recess, Grace received a text. Unknown number. "Watch the afternoon session carefully. The truth about Catherine will finally come out." Grace stared at the message. The mysterious woman again, the ghost who had helped them, who had killed Cole, who seemed to know everything. "What is it?" Robert asked. Grace showed him the phone. "Our friend is still watching. Do you think we can trust her? She saved our lives. She killed Cole. Whatever her reasons, she wants Victoria to pay." Robert nodded slowly. "Then we wait and see." At 2:00 p.m., the prosecution called a surprise witness. The people called Dr. Helena Vasquez. Grace felt the blood drain from her face. Vasquez, the same surname Victoria had used. A woman entered the courtroom. She was in her late 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes. She walked with a cane, but there was nothing frail about her presence. Victoria went rigid. "No," she whispered. "No, that is impossible." "State your name for the record." "Dr. Helena Vasquez. I am the defendant's mother." The courtroom erupted. Victoria jumped to her feet. "She is dead. She died 30 years ago." "Order." The judge banged his gavel. "The defendant will remain silent." Victoria's lawyer pulled her back into her seat, but her eyes were wild. For the first time since the trial began, she looked genuinely afraid. "Dr. Vasquez, can you explain your relationship to the defendant?" "I gave birth to her in 1979 in Bogota, Colombia. I raised her until she was 12 years old. And what happened when she was 12? I discovered what she was." Dr. Vasquez's voice was cold. "She had been killing animals since she was 8. Small things at first, birds, cats. By 12, she had graduated to larger prey. I found her neighbor's dog buried in our backyard. She had tortured it first." Grace felt sick. "I was a psychiatrist. I recognized the signs. My daughter was a psychopath, incapable of empathy, incapable of love, incapable of remorse." "What did you do?" "I tried to get her help. I checked her into a psychiatric facility, but she escaped after 6 months. She found me at home. She tried to kill me." Dr. Vasquez touched her leg. "She pushed me down the stairs. I spent 3 years learning to walk again. By then she had disappeared, changed her name, started her career of death." "And what have you been doing since then?" "Tracking her, following her from country to country, gathering evidence of her crimes." Dr. Vasquez's eyes found Grace in the crowd, and waiting for someone brave enough to stop her. Grace understood now. The mysterious woman, the ghost who had been helping them, the person who had killed Cole. It was Victoria's own mother. "Why did you not go to the police?" "I tried, many times, but Elena was always one step ahead. She had connections, corrupt officials, people like Marcus Cole who protected her." Dr. Vasquez's voice hardened. "When I heard what she did to the Harrington boy, I knew it was finally time to end this. I provided evidence to the FBI. I contacted Grace Mitchell anonymously. I did everything I could to make sure my daughter would finally face justice." "And Marcus Cole, he was found dead in Mexico shortly after the defendant's arrest." Dr. Vasquez's expression did not change. "I cannot comment on that." The prosecutor nodded. "No further questions." Victoria's lawyer approached the witness stand. "Dr. Vasquez, you admit you have been stalking your daughter for over 30 years. Not stalking, investigating. And you admit you provided anonymous tips that led to her arrest." "Yes." "So you have a personal vendetta against my client. You want her destroyed." "I want her stopped. There is a difference." "Is there? Because from where I am standing, it looks like a bitter old woman trying to punish a daughter who rejected her." Dr. Vasquez smiled grimly. "My daughter did not reject me. She tried to murder me, and she has murdered dozens of innocent people since. If wanting her stopped makes me bitter, then I am guilty." No further questions. At 4:30 p.m., the prosecution rested its case. Victoria's lawyer called only one witness, Victoria Sterling herself. Grace watched as the woman walked to the witness stand. She moved slowly, deliberately, as if she were the victim in this story. "Victoria, did you bury Lucas Harrington alive?" "No." "Did you kill Catherine Harrington?" "No." "Did you commit any of the crimes you are accused of?" "No, I am innocent. I have been framed by Marcus Cole, who manipulated me into believing he loved me, and by my mother, who has hated me since I was a child." Grace felt rage building in her chest. How could this woman lie so easily? How could she look at a jury and deny what she had done? "Victoria, can you explain why Lucas Harrington identified you as his attacker? He was drugged, confused. Someone else must have taken him, someone who looked like me." "And Emma Harrington. She saw you carrying Lucas that night." "She was half asleep. Children have vivid imaginations." "And your confession at the hospital, when you admitted to killing Catherine Harrington?" Victoria smiled sadly. "I was in shock. I had just learned that a child I loved had been buried alive. I was confused, hysterical. I did not know what I was saying." Grace could not take it anymore. She stood up. "You are lying." The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel. "Order, order in the court." "She tried to kill Lucas. She buried him alive. I pulled him out of the ground with my own hands. Remove that woman from the courtroom." Robert grabbed Grace's arm. "Grace, stop. You will make things worse." But Grace could not stop. The fury was too strong, the injustice too great. She is a monster. She has killed children. She cannot be allowed to walk free. Two bailiffs approached. Grace let them escort her out, her eyes never leaving Victoria's face. Victoria smiled at her as she was led away, that cold, triumphant smile. At 6:00 p.m., Grace sat outside the courthouse, her head in her hands. Robert found her there. "The jury is deliberating," he said quietly. "I ruined everything. My outburst probably destroyed the case." "No." Robert sat beside her. "You said what everyone was thinking, what they were too afraid to say." "It does not matter what they think. It matters what the jury believes." Robert was silent for a moment. "Do you think she will get away with it?" Grace thought about everything she had witnessed, the evidence, the testimonies. Victoria's mother appearing like a ghost from the past, the lies Victoria had told on the stand. "I do not know," she admitted. "I want to believe justice will prevail, but Victoria has escaped before, many times." "Not this time." Robert's voice was firm. "She will not escape this time." Grace looked at him. "How can you be sure?" "Because we will not let her. No matter what the jury decides, she will never hurt our family again." At 8:45 p.m., the jury returned. Grace was not allowed back in the courtroom after her outburst, but Robert texted her updates. "Jury is seated. Judge is asking for the verdict." Grace held her breath. 1 minute passed, 2, 3. Her phone buzzed. "Guilty, all 18 counts." Grace collapsed against the wall, tears streaming down her face. Relief flooded through her like a wave. Victoria would not escape. She would spend the rest of her life in prison. Justice had prevailed. Robert emerged from the courthouse 10 minutes later. His eyes were red, but he was smiling. "It is over," he said. She got life without parole, no possibility of release. Grace threw her arms around him. Thank God! Thank God! The judge said she is the most dangerous criminal he has ever encountered. He recommended she be held in a maximum security facility for the rest of her life. And the other victims, the families in Mexico and Spain. The FBI is working with international authorities. They will be notified. There may be additional trials in other countries. Grace pulled back and looked at him. What about your wife? Did they address Catherine's murder? Robert's face darkened. They added it to the charges. Victoria was convicted of Catherine's murder as well. Cole may have helped, but Victoria gave the order. He swallowed hard. At least now I know the truth. At least now Catherine can rest in peace. At 9:30 p.m., as they walked to the car, Grace's phone buzzed one final time. Unknown number. Justice has been served. My daughter will never hurt anyone again. Thank you, Grace, for being brave when no one else would, for saving that boy when everyone else failed. You gave me hope when I had none. Take care of those children. They are lucky to have you. Grace typed a reply. Thank you for everything. Will I ever see you again? The response came immediately. No, my work is finished. I can finally rest. But know this, there are angels in this world. People who fight in the shadows for those who cannot fight for themselves. You are one of them now. Never forget that. The number went dead. Grace stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she put the phone away and got into the car. At 10:15 p.m., Grace walked through the front door of the Harrington mansion. The children were waiting. Lucas ran toward her first, throwing his arms around her waist. Emma was right behind him, tears streaming down her face. Is it over? Emma asked. Is she really going to prison? Yes, sweetheart, she is never coming back. Never, ever. Never, ever, I promise. Carmen appeared in the doorway, wiping her eyes with her apron. I saw the news. I cannot believe it is finally finished. It is finished, Grace said. We are safe now. Robert knelt down and gathered both children into his arms. We are a family. Nothing will ever break us apart again. Lucas looked up at Grace. You saved me, in the garden. I remember. Grace felt tears spill down her cheeks. I would do it again, 1,000 times. I know. Lucas reached out and took her hand. That is why you are my hero. At 11:00 p.m., after the children were finally asleep, Grace sat alone in the kitchen. The house was quiet, peaceful. For the first time in weeks, there was no fear, no danger, no threat lurking in the shadows. Carmen brought her a cup of tea. You should sleep, the older woman said. You have earned it. I cannot. My mind will not stop. Carmen sat across from her. You know, when you first came to work here, I was not sure about you. You were so quiet, so reserved. I thought maybe you were hiding something. Grace smiled faintly. I was hiding. From my grief. From my past. But you found something here. A family. A purpose. I found more than that. I found myself. Grace looked at Carmen with gratitude. Thank you. For keeping my secret. For trusting me when everyone else doubted. I never doubted you. Not for one moment. Carmen squeezed her hand. You have a good heart, Grace. The children see it. Mr. Harrington sees it, and now the whole world sees it. I do not need the world to see anything. I just need them to be safe. They are safe because of you. At midnight, Grace finally went to her room, but before she could sleep, there was a knock at her door. Robert stood in the hallway looking uncertain. Can I come in? Of course. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. For a moment, he just stood there, struggling to find words. I have been thinking, he said finally, about everything that has happened, about what you have done for this family. Robert, you do not need to. Please, let me finish. He took a deep breath. When Catherine died, I thought my life was over. I could not eat. I could not sleep. I could barely look at my own children because they reminded me of her. Grace listened in silence. Then Victoria came along, and I thought she was the answer. I thought she would fill the hole in my heart. But she was not the answer. She was a predator, and I was too blind to see it. You are not the first person she fooled. That does not make it better. Robert's voice cracked. My son almost died. My daughter was traumatized, and it was my fault, because I was too desperate for love to see the truth. You cannot blame yourself for what Victoria did. I can blame myself for not protecting my children. He looked at her with wet eyes. But you protected them. When I failed, you stepped up. You risked your life to save Lucas. You stood up to Victoria when everyone else was afraid. I was afraid too. But you acted anyway. That is what courage is. Robert stepped closer. Grace, I know this might seem strange. We have been through so much, but I need you to know something. Grace's heart began to pound. What? You are not just a maid to me. You are not just an employee. You are... He struggled for the right words. You are everything. You are the reason my children smile again. You are the reason I have hope again. You are the reason I believe in goodness. Grace felt tears forming in her eyes. Robert, I am not asking for anything. I am not expecting anything. I just need you to know that whatever happens, whatever the future holds, you will always have a home here. With us. With me. He reached out and took her hand. Grace looked at their intertwined fingers. This man had lost so much. His wife, his trust, his sense of safety. And yet here he was, opening his heart again. I am not going anywhere, she said softly. I told you before. This is my home now. You are my family. Robert smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen from him in weeks. Then we will face whatever comes next, together. Together. At 1:00 a.m., Grace finally slept. For the first time in months, she did not dream of darkness. She did not dream of boxes buried in the ground or children crying beneath the earth. She dreamed of sunlight, of laughter, of 2 children running through a garden that had been replanted with sunflowers, and she dreamed of a future that, despite everything, was still possible. At 7:00 a.m., Grace woke to the sound of children's voices. She found Lucas and Emma in the kitchen, arguing over who got the last pancake. I saw it first, Lucas insisted. But I am older, Emma countered. Carmen stood at the stove, shaking her head. There are more coming. Stop fighting. Grace smiled. This was normal. This was beautiful. This was everything she had fought to protect. Good morning, she said. Both children turned and ran to her. Grace, you are awake. Did you sleep well? I dreamed about superheroes. Grace hugged them both tight. Robert appeared in the doorway, coffee cup in hand. He met Grace's eyes across the room and smiled. Outside, the sun was rising. A new day was beginning. And for the first time in a very long time, the Harrington family was ready to face it together. 6 months had passed since Victoria's conviction. Grace stood at the kitchen window at 6:30 a.m., watching the sun rise over the garden. The rose bushes were gone now, replaced by rows of bright yellow sunflowers that Lucas had helped plant. He said they reminded him of happy things, of light instead of darkness. Behind her, footsteps padded across the floor. You are up early. Grace turned. Robert stood in the doorway, coffee cup in hand, his hair still messy from sleep. Could not sleep, she admitted. Too much on my mind. The hearing is today. Grace nodded. Victoria's appeal. Despite her conviction, despite the mountain of evidence Victoria's lawyers had filed for a new trial. They claimed procedural errors, tainted evidence, witness tampering. It was nonsense. Everyone knew it. But the legal system required a hearing, and today was the day. Are you nervous? Robert asked. A little. She has escaped before. Not this time. Robert walked closer and put his hand on her shoulder. The evidence is overwhelming. The jury convicted her unanimously. No appeal court in the country will overturn that verdict. I know, but until I hear the words, I cannot relax. Robert squeezed her shoulder. Whatever happens today, we face it together. Grace smiled. Together. At 8:00 a.m., the children came downstairs for breakfast. Lucas was different now. The nightmares had faded. The fear in his eyes had been replaced by something brighter. He was seeing a therapist twice a week, and the progress was remarkable. Emma had changed too. She was fiercer now, more protective of her brother, more suspicious of strangers. But underneath the armor, she was still the same loving girl who had hugged Grace that first night and begged her never to leave. "Is today the day?" Emma asked, sliding into her seat. "Yes, sweetheart." "Will we have to go to court again?" "No. This is just a legal hearing. No witnesses. No testimony, just lawyers arguing." Lucas looked up from his cereal. "What if she gets out?" Grace felt her heart clench. Even after all this time, the fear was still there, buried deep, but never completely gone. "She will not get out," Grace said firmly. "The judge will deny her appeal, and she will stay in prison forever." "Promise." Grace knelt beside his chair and took his small hand in hers. "I promise. No matter what happens, I will never let anyone hurt you again." Lucas nodded slowly. Then he wrapped his arms around her neck and held on tight. "I love you, Grace. I love you too, baby, more than you will ever know." At 10:00 a.m., Grace and Robert arrived at the federal courthouse. The hearing was closed to the public, but as the primary victim's family they were allowed to observe. They sat in the gallery with their attorney waiting for the proceedings to begin. Victoria was led in at 10:15 a.m. She looked worse than before. The months in prison had taken their toll. Her hair was streaked with gray, her skin was sallow, her eyes had lost some of their predatory gleam. But when she saw Grace, that familiar smile crept across her face. Grace did not look away. Victoria's lawyer presented his arguments: procedural irregularities, chain of custody issues with the evidence, alleged bias in the jury selection. The prosecution countered each point methodically. The evidence was airtight, the procedures were followed exactly. The jury was fair and impartial. At 11:30 a.m., the judge called for a brief recess. Grace stepped out into the hallway to get some air. Her hands were trembling. Seeing Victoria again had brought everything back. The night in the garden, the sound of Lucas's breathing beneath the earth, the terror, the rage, the desperate fight to save his life. Robert found her leaning against the wall. "Are you okay?" "No, but I will be." The judge seemed skeptical of their arguments. "I think this is almost over." "I hope so." At 12:00 p.m., the hearing resumed. The judge looked at both legal teams with stern eyes. "I have reviewed the arguments presented today. I have also reviewed the trial record, the evidence, and the applicable law." Grace held her breath. "The defendant's claims of procedural error are without merit. The evidence was properly collected, documented, and presented. The jury selection followed all established protocols. There is no basis for a new trial." Victoria's lawyer started to object. "Furthermore," the judge continued, cutting him off, "I find that this appeal was filed in bad faith as a delaying tactic rather than a legitimate legal challenge. The motion for a new trial is denied. The original sentence stands: life without the possibility of parole." Grace felt tears streaming down her face. Robert grabbed her hand and squeezed. It was over, truly over. Victoria's expression did not change. She simply nodded as if she had expected this outcome all along. But as the guards led her away, she turned and looked directly at Grace. "This is not finished," she said quietly. "It will never be finished." Grace stood up. "You are wrong, Victoria. It is finished. You lost. And you will spend the rest of your life in a cage knowing that the people you tried to destroy are living happily without you." Victoria's mask cracked. For just a moment, Grace saw the rage beneath, the hatred, the impotent fury of a predator who had finally been defeated. Then the guards pulled her through the door, and she was gone. At 1:30 p.m., Grace and Robert walked out of the courthouse into the afternoon sun. Reporters surrounded them immediately. Cameras flashed. Microphones were thrust in their faces. "Ms. Mitchell, how do you feel about the judge's ruling?" "Mr. Harrington, will you be pursuing civil action against Victoria Sterling?" "Grace, what message do you have for other victims of crime?" Grace stopped. She looked at the crowd of reporters at the cameras capturing every moment. "I have one message," she said quietly, "for anyone who has ever felt invisible, for anyone who has ever been told they do not matter, for anyone who has ever been afraid to stand up for what is right." She paused. "You are not invisible. You matter. And sometimes the smallest act of courage can change everything. I was just a maid. Nobody special, nobody important. But when I heard that child crying beneath the ground, I did not wait for someone else to save him. I dug, and because I dug, he is alive today." She looked directly into the cameras. "Do not wait for heroes. Be the hero, even when you are scared, even when you are alone, even when the whole world tells you it is not your place. If you see something wrong, if you hear someone crying for help, do not look away. Act. Because that is what separates the good people from the bystanders." She turned and walked to the car, leaving the reporters shouting questions behind her. At 3:00 p.m., they returned home. The children were waiting at the door with Carmen. "Well," Emma demanded, "what happened?" "Her appeal was denied," Robert said. "She is going to prison forever." Lucas let out a whoop of joy. Emma burst into tears. Carmen crossed herself and murmured a prayer of thanks. Grace gathered both children into her arms and held them tight. "It is over," she whispered. "I promised you, and I kept my promise. You are safe now. Forever." At 5:00 p.m., an unexpected visitor arrived. Grace answered the door to find an elderly woman standing on the porch. It took her a moment to recognize Dr. Helena Vasquez Victoria's mother. "May I come in?" Grace hesitated. This woman had helped them, had provided evidence, had killed Marcus Cole, but she was also the mother of a monster. "Please, doctor," Vasquez said. "I will not stay long. I just need to say something. To you." Grace stepped aside. They sat in the living room. Dr. Vasquez looked around at the photographs on the walls, the toys scattered on the floor, the signs of a family rebuilding itself. "This is what she wanted to destroy," the old woman said quietly. "This love, this warmth. She has been destroying things like this her whole life." "Why are you here?" "To thank you." Dr. Vasquez met Grace's eyes. "I spent 30 years tracking my daughter, 30 years trying to stop her. I gathered evidence. I contacted authorities. I did everything I could, but nothing worked. She was always too clever, too careful. Until now. Until you." Dr. Vasquez leaned forward. "I watched you, Grace. After the night you saved that boy, I saw how you refused to back down, how you faced my daughter without flinching, how you protected those children with everything you had. I was just doing what anyone would do." "No, that is not true." The old woman's voice cracked. "Most people would have looked away. Most people would have convinced themselves it was not their problem. You did not. You ran into the darkness and pulled that child out with your bare hands." Grace felt tears forming. "I could not just leave him there." "I know. That is what makes you different." Dr. Vasquez reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. "I want you to have this." "What is it?" "The money from my daughter's offshore accounts. All of it. Over $12 million. The FBI recovered it and distributed it to the victims' families. But there is no one left from most of those families. So they gave it to me." Grace stared at the envelope. "I cannot take your money." "It is not my money. It is blood money, stolen from the people my daughter murdered." Dr. Vasquez pressed the envelope into Grace's hands. "Use it to help others. Build something good from all this evil. That is the only way to truly defeat what my daughter represented." Grace looked at the envelope. $12 million. Enough to change countless lives. "What do you want me to do with it?" "Whatever your heart tells you." Dr. Vasquez stood. "I have spent my whole life trying to undo the damage my daughter caused. I failed. But you succeeded. So I am trusting you to do what I could not." She walked to the door. Goodbye, Grace. Take care of those children. They are lucky to have you. Wait. Grace stood. Will I see you again? Dr. Vasquez smiled sadly. No, my work is finished. I can finally rest. She touched Grace's face gently. You gave me peace, Grace. For the first time in 30 years, I can sleep without nightmares. Thank you. Then she was gone. At 7:00 p.m., Grace sat with Robert in his study and showed him the envelope. $12 million, he said, stunned. What are you going to do with it? I do not know yet, but I want to do something meaningful, something that helps people like me. People like you. Immigrants, domestic workers, people who are invisible. Grace looked at the envelope in her hands. When I came to this country, I had nothing. $200 and a dream. I worked jobs that no one else wanted. I was treated like I did not exist. And every day I watched people suffer in silence because they were too afraid to speak up. You want to help them. I want to give them a voice. I want to create something that tells them they matter, that their courage matters, that even the smallest person can make a difference. Robert nodded slowly. A foundation. Yes, a foundation for invisible heroes, for the maids and gardeners and caregivers who see things others do not, for the people who speak up when no one else will. I think that is beautiful. Will you help me? Robert took her hand. I will do more than help. I will match every dollar. $24 million total. We will build something that changes lives. Grace felt tears spilling down her cheeks. Why would you do that? Because you changed mine. Robert's voice was thick with emotion. You saved my son. You saved my daughter. You saved me. And now I want to help you save others. At 9:00 p.m., Grace tucked Lucas into bed. The boy was drowsy, his eyes already half closed. Grace, yes, sweetheart. Do you think Mom knows that we are okay now? Grace smoothed the hair from his forehead. I think she knows. I think she is watching over you every single day. I miss her. I know you do, and that is okay. Missing someone means you loved them. Lucas was quiet for a moment. Then, I love you too, Grace. Is that okay? To love you and Mom at the same time? Grace felt her heart break and heal in the same moment. That is more than okay. Your heart is big enough for all the love in the world, and your mom would be so happy that you have people who love you and keep you safe. And like you. Like me. Lucas smiled sleepily. Good, because I want you to stay forever. I am not going anywhere. Promise? I promise. He was asleep within minutes. Grace sat beside him for a long time, watching his peaceful face, remembering the night she had pulled him from that grave. He had been so cold, so still. She had truly believed he was dead. But he was not dead. He was here. He was alive. He was dreaming of happy things, because she had not given up, because she had dug. At 10:30 p.m., Grace found Emma in her room writing in a journal. Can I come in? Emma nodded. Grace sat on the edge of the bed. What are you writing? Everything that happened. I do not want to forget. Why would you want to remember something so terrible? Emma looked at her with eyes that seemed much older than 9. Because it made us stronger. You taught me that. When something bad happens, you do not run away. You face it. You fight it. And then you write it down so you never forget what you survived. Grace felt pride swelling in her chest. This girl had been through so much, had seen so much, and instead of breaking, she had grown. You are going to do amazing things, Emma Harrington. I truly believe that. I want to help people, like you do. When I grow up, I want to be brave like you. You are already brave. You hit Victoria with that fire extinguisher, remember? You saved us all. Emma smiled. I was so scared. Being scared does not mean you are not brave. It means you are human. Bravery is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite the fear. Emma set down her journal and hugged Grace tightly. Thank you for staying. Thank you for being my family. Thank you for letting me in. 1 year after Victoria's conviction, the Grace Mitchell Foundation held its grand opening. The ceremony took place at 10:00 a.m. in downtown Los Angeles. Hundreds of people attended: politicians, celebrities, journalists, but most importantly, ordinary people. Maids, gardeners, caregivers, janitors, the invisible workforce that kept the world running. Grace stood at the podium, her hands trembling, looking out at the crowd. 1 year ago, I was nobody. A maid in a rich man's house, invisible, forgettable. Someone the world looked right through. She paused. Then I heard a sound that no one else heard, a child crying beneath the ground. And I had a choice. I could go back to bed. I could convince myself it was just my imagination. I could wait for someone else to investigate. Her voice strengthened. But I did not wait. I dug, with my bare hands in the middle of the night, not knowing what I would find. And because I dug, a little boy is alive today. She looked at Lucas sitting in the front row between Robert and Emma. This foundation is not about me. It is about all of you, the invisible heroes who see things others do not, who hear sounds that others ignore, who have the courage to act when everyone else looks away. Grace held up a small card. Starting today, anyone who witnesses a crime and reports it will have access to legal support, financial assistance, and protection. No matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what language you speak, you will not be alone. The crowd erupted in applause, because that is what heroes do. They do not wait for permission. They do not wait for someone else to go first. They act, even when they are scared, even when they are alone, even when the whole world tells them it is not their place. Grace looked directly into the cameras broadcasting the event worldwide. So if you are watching this and you have ever felt invisible, I want you to know something. You are not invisible. You are seen. You matter. And one day your moment will come. When it does, do not hesitate. Do not second-guess yourself. Act, because you might be the only person who can. At 12:00 p.m. after the ceremony, Grace walked through the foundation's new offices. The walls were lined with photographs, victims who had been saved, witnesses who had come forward, ordinary people who had done extraordinary things. Robert found her standing in front of one photograph in particular. It showed Grace on the night of Lucas's rescue, still covered in dirt, still wearing her old robe, holding Lucas's small hand as they waited at the hospital. I remember that night, Robert said quietly. I thought my world was ending. It was not ending. It was beginning again. Because of you. Grace shook her head. Because of all of us. Carmen, who kept secrets to protect the people she loved. Jose, who forgave us for suspecting him. Dr. Vasquez, who never stopped fighting even when everyone else gave up. Even Emma, who swung that fire extinguisher when no one else could. And you, the woman who heard a child crying and refused to ignore it. Grace turned to face him. Robert, I need to tell you something. What? These past months have been the happiest of my life, not because of the foundation, not because of the recognition, but because of you, because of Lucas and Emma, because for the first time since I lost my own family, I feel like I belong somewhere. Robert took her hands. You do belong, here, with us, forever. I was so afraid that once the danger was over, you would not need me anymore. I will always need you, not as a maid, not as an employee, as family. He paused. As something more, if you will let me. Grace's heart pounded. What are you saying? Robert reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. I have been carrying this for 3 months, waiting for the right moment. I know it might seem too soon. I know we have been through so much, but I also know that life is short, and I do not want to waste another day pretending I do not love you. He opened the box. Inside was a simple gold ring with a single diamond. Grace Mitchell, will you marry me? Grace could not breathe, could not think, could not do anything except stare at the ring and the man holding it. I am just a maid, she whispered. You are the woman who saved my son, the woman who healed my daughter, the woman who taught me how to love again." Robert's eyes were wet. "You are everything to me, Grace. Please, say yes." Grace looked at the ring, looked at Robert, looked at the photographs on the walls, the evidence of all the lives that had been changed because one invisible woman had refused to look away. "Yes," she said. Robert slid the ring onto her finger. Then he pulled her close and kissed her. In the doorway, unnoticed, Lucas and Emma watched with wide smiles. "I told you," Emma whispered to her brother. "I knew he was going to ask her." "Does this mean Grace is going to be our mom now?" "No, dummy, she already is our mom. Now it is just official." At 6:00 p.m., the Harrington family sat together for dinner. It was a simple meal: pasta and salad and garlic bread. Carmen had cooked as she always did, but tonight she sat at the table with them instead of serving. "To family," Robert said, raising his glass. "To family," everyone echoed. Lucas tugged at Grace's sleeve. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything, sweetheart." "When you and Dad get married, can I be the ring bearer?" Grace laughed. "Of course you can. And can Emma be the flower girl?" "I am too old to be a flower girl," Emma protested. "Fine, then you can be the person who walks down the aisle." "The maid of honor," Carmen supplied. "Yeah, that." Grace looked around the table at the faces of the people she loved. Robert, who had opened his heart to her when it would have been so much easier to stay closed. Emma, who had grown from a frightened girl into a fierce young warrior. Lucas, who had survived the unimaginable and emerged with his spirit intact. Carmen, who had stood by them through everything. This was her family now, not by blood, but by choice, by courage, by love. At 9:00 p.m., Grace walked through the garden one last time. The sunflowers swayed gently in the evening breeze. The stars were emerging overhead. The air smelled like jasmine and fresh earth. She stopped at the spot where she had found Lucas. The soil had been replaced. The flowers had been planted. But she could still see it in her mind. The wooden box, the small body inside, the desperate scratches on the lid. "I almost lost him here," she said quietly. Robert appeared beside her. "But you did not." "I think about it sometimes. What would have happened if I had not woken up? If I had not heard the sound? If I had been 5 minutes slower?" "You cannot think that way." "I know, but sometimes I cannot help it." Grace touched one of the sunflowers. "He could have died." "Right here, in this exact spot, and no one would have known until morning." "But he did not die, because of you." Grace turned to face him. "I was so scared that night, more scared than I have ever been in my life. I did not know if I was doing the right thing. I did not know if I would be too late. I just knew I had to try. And that is what matters, not the fear, not the doubt, the trying." Grace nodded slowly. "I spent so many years feeling invisible, feeling like I did not matter, like I was just a ghost moving through other people's lives. You were never invisible to me. I know that now, but it took a long time to believe it." She looked up at the stars. "When I pulled Lucas out of that box, something changed inside me. I realized that I was not invisible. I was just waiting for my moment. And when it came, I did not hesitate. And now," Grace smiled, "now I want to help others find their moment. I want to show them that they matter, that their courage matters, that even the smallest act of bravery can change the world. You already are." At 11:00 p.m., Grace sat by Lucas's bed one final time. The boy was asleep, his face peaceful, his breathing steady. She watched him for a long moment, remembering the night she had carried him through the streets, feeling his heartbeat against her chest, praying he would survive. He had survived. He had more than survived. He had thrived. "Sleep well, sweetheart," she whispered. "You are safe now. You will always be safe." She kissed his forehead and walked to the door. In the hallway, Emma was waiting. "Grace, can I talk to you?" "Of course, honey. What is it?" Emma looked at her with serious eyes. "I want to thank you for everything." "You do not need to thank me." "Yes, I do. Before you came, I was so scared all the time. After Mom died, I felt like the world was ending. And then Victoria came and everything got worse. I thought I would never feel safe again. And now, Emma smiled, now I know that no matter what happens, you will be there. You will protect us. You will fight for us, just like you did that night. Grace knelt down and hugged her tight. I will always fight for you, Emma. Always. I know. Emma pulled back and looked at her with wet eyes. That is why I love you. Because you never give up, no matter how hard things get. Neither do you. You are the bravest girl I know. I learned from the best. At midnight, Grace stood at her bedroom window looking out at the city lights. So much had changed in the past year. She had gone from invisible to celebrated, from maid to mother, from nobody to somebody who mattered. But underneath all the changes, she was still the same person. The woman who woke up when she heard a sound that did not belong. The woman who dug with her bare hands in the middle of the night. The woman who ran barefoot through the streets with a dying child in her arms. That was who she was. That was who she would always be. Robert appeared behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. What are you thinking about? Everything, nothing. She leaned back against him. I was thinking about my son, the one I lost. Tell me about him. Grace felt the old grief stir, but it was softer now, less sharp. His name was Miguel. He was 7 when he died, a rare blood disease. The doctors said there was nothing they could do. She paused. I held his hand at the end. I watched him slip away, and for a long time after that I wanted to slip away too. But you did not. No. I came to America instead. I started over. I told myself I would find a reason to keep living. She turned to face him. And I did. Lucas, Emma, you, this family. Miguel would be proud of you. I hope so. I hope he knows that I never stopped loving him, that everything I do in his memory. Robert kissed her forehead. He knows. Grace smiled. Thank you. For what? For seeing me. When the whole world looked right through me, you saw me. You gave me a home, a family, a reason to keep fighting. You gave yourself those things, Grace. I just provided the house. She laughed softly. Always so humble. Always so deserving. They stood together in the darkness, two people who had found each other through tragedy and emerged stronger. At 7:00 a.m. the next morning, Grace woke to the sound of children laughing. She found Lucas and Emma in the garden chasing each other through the sunflowers. Robert stood on the patio, coffee in hand, watching them with a smile. Grace walked to his side. Good morning. Good morning, future Mrs. Harrington, she smiled. I like the sound of that. Lucas ran over, breathless and grinning. Grace, come play with us. In a minute, sweetheart. Please, Emma is cheating. I am not cheating, Emma shouted from across the garden. You are just slow. Lucas grabbed Grace's hand and started pulling. Come on, you can be on my team. Grace looked at Robert. He nodded. Go, I will bring more coffee. Grace let Lucas drag her into the garden, into the sunlight, into the chaos of children's laughter and flying petals and pure, unbridled joy. She thought about everything she had survived, the loss, the grief, the terror, the nights when she thought she would never smile again, and she thought about everything she had gained, a family, a purpose, a reason to wake up every morning. She had been invisible once, a ghost moving through other people's lives, but she was not invisible anymore. She was Grace Mitchell, mother, wife, hero, and she had finally found her place in the world. Lucas grabbed her hand and looked up at her with shining eyes. I love you, Grace. She knelt down and hugged him tight. I love you too, baby. Forever and always. Above them, the sunflowers swayed in the morning breeze, their faces turned toward the light. Just like Grace, always toward the light. Because that was what survivors did. That was what heroes did. They found the light even in the darkest moments, and they never ever stopped fighting for the people they loved.